Winston the Beard, back again. I paused it in Pennsylvania, so we'll pick it up in Pennsylvania. So after Niagara Falls, coming down Lake Erie, I skipped through Pennsylvania, camped near Erie and visited an art museum. That was definitely worth a visit. A few photos on that, but that was lovely actually. Had a really awesome time just in Erie for a day. It's Pennsylvania, so I really just did kind of cut off the edge of it. Came down into Ohio. Ohio was a really interesting state actually. Cleveland, I spent a few nights in, and Columbus. They were the two main places that I stayed in Ohio. Managed to catch a ride down here. Cleveland was very much like some of the other industrial towns around Lake Erie, so places like Detroit and Toledo. I didn't go to these other ones, but I'm told pretty similar. It boomed when the shipping industry was at its peak. Not quite a century ago, but almost. So yeah, a lot of mining up in northern America, and a lot of the stuff that they mined. Steel and I think iron ore, maybe. It all came down on ships. So and also things came in from the Atlantic into the lakes, and Cleveland was a shipping town city. So it was interesting, but it was quite clear that the boom in Cleveland was quite a long time ago, and now it's. It's a nice place to be, but it's kind of very middle America, I would say, where the prosperity was in the past. But it was still a cool place to go visit. Columbus, a bit further south, completely different. I got a very different vibe in Columbus. It was a lot more progressive, maybe a little bit more youthful. I'm not sure, but there was more things like artisan places to go and eat and drink, and a lot more people doing things with recipes and coffees and things like that. So Columbus was quite a well-to-do town actually. There wasn't really a lot of old industry. It was all pretty new and it was all right as cities go. Because I'm avoiding most of them. Columbus was a cool one. It was all right. There was neighbourhoods there that were old and Victorian, and they were pretty nice places to hang out. Anyway, off into Indiana. Didn't spend a lot of time in Indiana. I was in a couple of suburbs of Indianapolis. It was about 2 weeks before the Indy 500 was on, so things were getting pretty busy, but I didn't spend too long. However, I did meet KP, who became my travel buddy, my travel companion for a while, and we decided to go from Indianapolis and drive across the Midwest, which was a massive boost to my trip, and I know KP had a blast. He certainly got a lot out of the trip. We laughed and we joked, and I know he won't mind me saying, but he enjoys being the dithering pensioner, which he really wasn't. He and I bonded very quickly, and it soon became apparent that my trip coincided with a trip that he'd planned a couple of years ago to go across much of Northern America. It just so happened that he had a truck and he wanted to go on a bit of a road trip. So essentially I managed to hitch a ride for quite some time. Not quite as simple as that. I helped, I essentially was the navigator and the chef and a few other things, and it worked out really well. I made a really good friend in KP, and I'll hopefully get back to Indianapolis and say hi, maybe for another trip. So we decided to drive from Indianapolis across the Midwest, and the Midwest is basically all the states in the middle of America. Now, this it kind of blew me away. It was massive. It was massive, and it was flat, and it was almost as flat as this map looks on the floor. I'm guessing it was probably going to be 1,500 miles ish, depending on where you start and finish the Midwest. But if you sort of not Chicago and Milwaukee, actually is Milwaukee in Illinois, or is it in no, it's in Wisconsin. But if you got to Chicago, that's northern Illinois. But if you start in Illinois about here and go across 3 or 4 states to certainly western Nebraska, maybe a little bit into Wyoming, and in the south as well, you know, you've got Missouri and Kansas and eastern Colorado, northern Oklahoma and Arkansas, but essentially all of this area is the Midwest. It's massive. It's one of the largest fertile agricultural lands on the planet, and it's flat, and it goes on for miles, and you can't see the end of it. You just see the horizon. So we traveled from Illinois, Indiana, into the Midwest, Illinois, Iowa. Went to the Amana colonies up there. They were German settlers. That was quite interesting. And we essentially went over the Missouri, and then we went over the Mississippi. And when we got into Iowa, we went into Nebraska, and then Nebraska we followed the river north into South Dakota. Still the Midwest, still quite flat. Grasslands up here and Indian reserves. It was fascinating. So South Dakota, and then we headed into western South Dakota towards Wyoming and Montana, and that's when things started to get quite interesting. So the Midwest was a massive flat area of land for farming, and that's pretty much it. They call them the flyover states because people think there's nothing there, which I think is a bit unfortunate, but it's kind of true. The farms are the reason why America is so dominant in the world, or you know, has been, and is the reason why it is where it is today. They feed the nation from it. They grow corn, they grow soybean. Is it maize? They grow 3 things. I think the other one might be maize, but it's definitely corn and soybean. And it just goes on for miles. I was really happy that I got to see it. It's beautiful. The nature was there, even though you know the big predators aren't, because the farmers tend to shoot them. But it was very interesting, and you could see to the horizon. The views were amazing. All the crops were still very small, barely above ankle height when I was there. So you really could see all the way to the horizon, instead of just walls of cornfields, or you know, driving in between cornfields, which you know you don't get to see very much when they're all 6 foot high. So I'm really glad I got to see it, but I'm also very happy that I managed to travel across it rather quickly. And camping on Missouri and the Mississippi, or Mississippi first, was very interesting. I did quite a bit of reading about those 2 rivers, and yeah, they were vital rivers in catapulting America into the 20th century. Right, without the video getting too long, I'll pause it at South Dakota, and then the real fun begins. We get up into some seriously interesting, varied landscape after South Dakota, and there you go, Midwest chat. Cheerio.